Hey there, welcome to episode 133 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, as usual, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 8:53 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas on Thursday, June 11th, 2026. We normally publish new episodes of the FFS Talk audio program on Thursdays, usually before the end of the day. Today, sometimes days get away from us, and then we say FFS, and here we are. FFS Talk, episode 133 already. Where does the time go? Today's title and topic, Flipped Classroom. If you've never heard of FFS Talk before, well, this is the format is intended to invite discussion, debate, argument, all in a constructive direction. If we ever have guests, I have yet to actually invite a guest on. So really, I prefer to think of these early 133 episodes as planting seeds for future discussion. If there's some topic that looks interesting, that you differ in your views or opinions, if I've missed something, that is absolutely possible, we'll have guests on someday. I prefer to think of myself as rather tenacious. I'm not giving up anytime soon. When in doubt, just record the episode later in the day. If you're not familiar with what FFS stands for, you do need to hang out with more Irish people. On that note, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I will read to you. It's actually a little tiny bit longer than brief, but that's fine. And then the links, we have the two usual show links and two Wikipedia links. So let's get started before this day ends. The summary of today's episode. I am not an educator, no credentials or classroom experience to speak of at all, really. But based on my life experiences, working with young people here and there, and conversations on this topic, along with some research, of course, I think the flipped classroom is the way to go in the AI era. Surely this is a debate-worthy topic. Now, I'm not going to get into AI so much because this is something that's kind of just beginning, and the fallout has yet to come by and make itself known to us. I did do an episode 31 of this audio program concerning the use of digital devices in the classroom. Jonathan Haidt has written a couple of books about this, and I cannot remember the title of the book. I read his book, and it was reasonable. I have some things to say about devices in the classroom. I think social media in the classroom is bad, but I think banning the device is a little bit tricky. So in a flipped classroom, the device would find a better place. And then AI being accessible on the devices is probably the next thing to be concerned about, or to... Basically, my view is, in an educational setting, removing things that will form a huge part of the future, digital devices on your person, in your pocket or on your face or wherever, and then access to information all the time, and AI having some role to play in that. I think you kind of have to, it's like saying, math is scary, let's put it off until you're an adult. I don't know if I buy that. Anyway, that was episode 31. That was a long time ago. That was like 100 episodes ago. I was at 102 episodes, I guess. And yeah, so there you go. The links for today's episode, the FFS Talk homepage, ffstalk.com. It will eventually be the primary point of publication. Spotify will still be there, all the usual places, but having a homepage for your intellectual property is rarely a bad idea. ffstalk.com. Profile page linking everything. I've had this page for 5 years, 2 months, and some days. buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. There you will find links to all of my audio programs, projects, some affiliate links. If you'd like to support these efforts, you can do so. You can buy me a coffee. You don't have to. There's no obligation to spend any money. To obtain this information, the Buy Me an Update audio program is published on Monday mornings. That usually is the case. Its namesake, Buy Me a Coffee, is where it used to be published exclusively, but now it's published there first. And then 2 hours later, it's published in all the other usual places. Buy me an update, a 5-minute or less weekly rundown on the previous week's audio programs and news and announcements upcoming. A great way to start the week if you like my other programs. The Flipped Classroom Wikipedia page. There's a lot to say there. I have my take on a flipped classroom, but again, I'm not working in a classroom. I don't teach young people. I personally think the flipped classroom probably makes sense, or maybe around 5th grade. So that's age 10, 10-ish, 11. I think it's 10. I think it's 9 or 10. 10. I think it's 10. 4th grade is, no, 4th grade is 10. 7th grade is 12. 6th grade is 11. 5th grade is 10. I don't know how that works out. Somewhere in there. I think before that, younger students will not be responsible enough to drive their own education. So that's my personal take. But what do I know? The Bloom's taxonomy is always a good thing to be aware of. It has evolved over the years, but I once took a class, as I'm going to mention very shortly. I was one of those kids that was bored. So they would put us in a bus, a full-size school bus, and it was about 4 of us. And we would go to I don't know if it was like an unused campus or something. And I think it was 4 or 6 of us, and it was an experimental program, and they were focusing on the Bloom taxonomy, and they told us, and I think I was in sixth grade at the time. They told us about it. They had this construction paper on the wall, kind of I think it was like a rainbow or something. So the different levels were the different colors, but the Bloom's taxonomy is usually normal classroom work is in the lower 3 levels. The upper 3 levels are more about creativity and not creativity, but creating like a synthesis, for example. So once you learn enough in the lower 3 levels, sure, you're memorizing and whatnot, but as you move above there, you're let me refer to the 6 levels. When was it? When I was there? Was it this one? Like I said, it's evolved over the years. I think it was this one. Oh yeah. So the lower 3 levels, knowledge. So we'll move up. So knowledge, comprehension, application, and then the unusual to find in a public classroom, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. So it's a lot more about putting what you're learning to use rather than just learning one thing, moving on to the next thing, and so on. It was an interesting attempt. But Bloom's taxonomy is, like I said, it's changed. It's not necessarily the end all and be all, but it's kind of interesting. And I think I referred to it at least once. So you got to know what it is. So let's flip it. So like I said, I was one of those kids that was bored in school. So my teachers used to give me errands to run around campus. One teacher who took on a challenge got me bumped up into a higher grade level. I was actually in 3rd grade. She said, you should be taking upper level. So I was in the 7th grade science class. The school hated it. I was like the outlier, and they didn't know what to do. So, and then I had that very same teacher for 6th grade. Maybe there's a coincidence there. I spent a lot of time in libraries. I learned how to read when I was very young, very, very young. I think I was 3 or 4. 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. We had an encyclopedia set, and I always had my intellectual curiosity to push me forward. This obviously skews my views on classroom teaching, since I wasn't totally dependent on classroom teaching. Though I was observant enough back then to notice that some students were bored for being ahead. Others were bored for being behind. And because classroom teaching is about the middle, the average student, maybe the slightly below average student. And everybody else is kind of on your own. So one teacher, even 2, is not necessarily enough to keep the gaggle advancing. Busy work, stay quiet. Quiet ball, remember that game? Cell phone distractions, heavy sigh. The cell phone parts, those are more recent development, of course. We didn't have those when I was a kid. But it sure seems to me that the busy work could be thrown out. The book work, the essays and reading assignments could all be done at home on a personal timeline. I know some people will say, oh, they assign too much homework. So I would prefer to think of it as home preparation. And the classroom could be where the social interaction, questions and answers with the teacher, or in work groups with peers, various projects, presentations. So if you run through the Wikipedia article on the flipped classroom, it'll give you some idea where that is and how it all fits together. So it's a learner-centric approach. That's the students. So in keeping with the format of the show, we do what works, what doesn't, and what we could do about it. So what works? My opinion, but it is again based on my observations over many years, conversations, research, and so on. Now, obviously, students not acclimated to a flipped classroom will need to do so, but homework can be lightened with most of the reinforcement learning taking place in a social setting in the classroom. Skim over the Wikipedia article for more details here, but basically the learner prepares outside of the classroom for real interaction engagement in the classroom. So that's a positive. That's just something that works, is that you're much more interactive in the classroom. It's not doing busy work and remaining quiet, like I said. This makes for a more intense day, but that's what learning should be. Social learning helps to connect individual contribution with collaboration, which addresses a problem I personally have witnessed with the test-centric structure in place today, the No Child Left Behind stuff. And to be honest, I think there's another component of that, which I don't remember, but it focuses on the individual student and not collaboration. If a student can get through the particular subject with tests, the bulk of any sort of progress measurement and assessment, which is, that's it. Did you pass the test? Not did you interact? Did you actually participate? Did you reach any of the upper levels of the Bloom's taxonomy and so on? Not that, this would be tricky. That's why I'm not an educator. So I will tell you that some people may not be able to. That's a different thing. Maybe it's rote memory and not anywhere near the upper levels though. And so that's possibly a problem. Have you actually learned? Have you accomplished the learning process? Or are you just filling in the blanks? And are you able to express that and interact with other people to be a part of the world? So I think that's something that could actually be taught. It turns school not into a daycare center, but into a place of actual preparation for the world that lies ahead, if it's still there. In my view, the particular classroom for a particular time and a learner's schedule might not be a fixed place. The ability to adjust the conversation and where it's taking place based on a comfort level with the material could lead to a variety of interactions with different peer groups or teachers around different levels of conversation. This means that you're not in your homeroom and in the same classroom for first period. You get exposed to more variety. Now, some might argue, you need some predictability in the timeline. This is why this would probably be a later, like sixth, 7th grade, 8th grade, not necessarily for kindergartners. But it basically says, I didn't know how that thing worked yesterday. So maybe there are some people that are going to go a little bit more base and figure out the core functionality or the specific details of a historical event. So a deeper dive that might be useful, whereas others might go a little bit higher in the Bloom's taxonomy, might be moving a little bit faster. So something to think about. Now, what does not work with this entire notion? Obviously, this change would be dramatic and would make the learner, otherwise known as the student, a proactive participant in the learning process. I know that sounds crazy. If that's not always the case in a typical scheme, like I said, I think sometimes it's, I had an awful teacher that taught exactly to a standardized test, nothing more. So then you're not really, you sit there and memorize this. That's all you got to do. That's the wrong goal. A student who is following a Common Core curriculum, the No Student Left Behind model, perhaps, something based more on individual progress through standardized testing. So that's what I just described in that case. This was long before Common Core and No Student Left Behind. But The flipped classroom might be more than is reasonable to transition to. That would be unfortunate because the world is a flipped classroom. You do have to sort of interact with people in the future, or maybe not, in your future. Whatever the path to the flipped classroom, early phases are likely to be jarring, since the student in this learner-centric model is far more responsible for their own progress than they may have been used to or were prepared for up to that point. And that would make the transition from, the early years in a more traditional structure to being, taking on this personal responsibility. But again, that's how the world works. So what is the earliest age that could be possible to turn learning into a proactive collaboration? That is a little bit above my pay grade. This could lead to a rollback, giving up on flipped classroom early. That could be on a student or a school basis, or maybe everyone would simply say, my kid doesn't like this. I don't mean to diminish, but you got to give it time. Education is a multi-year process. And if you give up after a month or two, then they might end up switching from something that isn't working yet during a transitional stage to figure out how it's going to work for you and for each individual student and how they can collaborate and so on. And maybe switching back to something that doesn't really work, which is our standard, slightly below average student in the classroom pacing of a classroom environment with piles of homework. Teachers and the rest of the infrastructure around teaching and learning would also need to adapt. And if history tells us anything, this would take a very long time and would be unlikely to succeed at scale. That's the way it is today. We can make some assumptions, but we can also just look at what happens during the pandemic, what happened during the pandemic lockdown scenario from 2020, 2021, whenever you may have encountered this, somewhere in 2020 and then maybe up to 2022, and how the fragility of the current system was exposed and how little has changed since. You remember how students remaining at home, where are they going to work? There's no desk space. How are they going to share a web camera with a parent who may have been on a Zoom call? So we start to see that learning from home and so on can be, it's a shock. So what can we do about it? I hope something, even for those of us without a direct day-to-day connection to education. I don't have any kids, so I don't hang out at schools. The youth today are the future today. I don't know if you know this, but people who are 10 years old today, 10 years from now are going to be 20 years old. And then 20 years after that, they're going to be 40 years old. And so they're, in the future, it's them. They become the present in two shakes. Time flies, right? That said, a lot of adult commentary focuses on the way Common Core mathematics are taught. They usually, what is my kid being taught here? And while that does not represent while that does represent some examination, like taking some time to actually look at teaching methodologies, I think it's a rare parent who has the time. It's probably not willful, but it's a rare parent who has the time because, the workday world and in the world we live in. So having the time to actually, learn with your child or children can be a test. So not every parent has that time to kind of do a deep dive. Like, how are they teaching in this? There really does need to be a general familiarity increase on the part of the general population, even if you don't have kids, concerning how education works or does not. When you think about it, scientific research, for example, medical research, why should I worry about that? I don't have that disease. I don't have that malady. I don't have that problem. Well, maybe someday you will. So even if you are not directly impacted today, you are impacted. That's how society works. So being aware would be a good start. Was there a retrospective after the pandemic lockdowns, which included an apparently inconvenient, even catastrophic by some accounts, change from classroom teaching to homeschooling with remote teaching? And the fallout from this points directly to the fragility of classroom-based, teacher-centric learning infrastructure. A collective realization that this is a catastrophic problem would be essential. And the current trend towards removing phones from classrooms is an indication that this might actually be possible, at least in phases. In other words, to have people agree that their kids can't have phones in classrooms is an achievement. It's an accomplishment. I don't know that it's the best idea. Digital devices, by the way, would remain in the classroom in the flipped classroom model, in my opinion. Since the flipped classroom would ideally focus not on doom scrolling, right? When are young people using their phones and social media in a school setting? It's because they got nothing better to do, or they're able to steal away and do some Instagramming or whatever. Distraction would be less of a problem because they're busy. They're busy interacting with their peers in person rather than instant messaging and whatnot. So they wouldn't be distracted by their phones either. But on using digital tools and online resources as part of a collaborative learning process, well, that seems essential to me because, again, you're going to be in the real world where these things are in use right now. So I've often used the example of driver's education. Cars are very dangerous, and yet young people learn how to drive when they're 16, give or take, depending on where you are. So if you could offer a driver's education class, but you could also say, this is not safe. You must wait until you are out of school to learn how to drive. Well, that would have a lasting impact on several things. So I think it's about integrating modernity into the classroom and having conversations about it, not sequestering modernity away into a locked bag, a digital proof bag, to be opened later. We shall see how all of that unfolds. Whatever the case, a global return to learning positive intentions, that is, people who care about the young people learning, in fact, all people learning, this is essential, of course. What more is there to say about all this? Learning is a good thing. It's something people should continue to do. It should be treated and respected and valued like it could save the world or destroy it, and be handled accordingly. So I'd like to see more attention paid to what is really happening as a young person traverses the educational system. I myself attended a preschool for 2 years before kindergarten. It was interesting. Now, when you think about a preschool, you're interacting with your peers a lot more than later in the school, where you're often sitting at a desk in a classroom, either reading a book or doing some sort of written assignment. That interactivity could be a good thing, and it helps to develop, in preschool and kindergarten, you're developing your social skills to work with your peer group. That could extend all the way through. How to talk to my peers, not about something on TikTok, but this, how does this math work? When am I ever going to use this? Well, one of your peers may already be using it. I think history is something that is, I think handing students a book and reading a book, a history book, and which could be very dense, even like junior high school level textbooks, they're pretty dense. What if there was a better way to present history so it kind of connects a little bit better? Reading history is fine, I mean, in general, but I think when you're introducing new topics, when you're stepping through whatever the curriculum is for various grade levels, and trying to connect people who have no idea how the world works with how the world became what it is at any given moment, that can be a challenge that I don't think is best achieved by handing someone a book and saying, here, read this, and then try to figure it out. And you really need teachers or materials and teachers, an integrated system of getting that point across. History is actually pretty important. We know that because when people don't treat it that way, we get to repeat it. Anyway, hey, let's keep today's episode short. Let's get back to the classroom and try to figure this out. I think education is undervalued. Just imagine if the SpaceX IPO had some sort of connection to education and educational development of educational process, programs, curriculum, and so on. No, it's about grok and data centers and launching a rocket now and then, getting to Mars. I don't know about that one. So, hey, let's leave it here today. It's a little bit of a brief episode. I got 27 minutes on the clock right now, ish. We'll truncate some silence and see how that helps us out. So yeah, about I'm going to say about 25 minutes when that's said and done. But yeah, think about it. Take a moment and read about flipped classroom. It's just good to know how that would work. It's an idea. There could be better ways than that. The best way to figure that out is to actually spend time and not believe in the post-pandemic world that let's get back to the school as daycare center. I just want to drop my kid off so I can go to work and not worry about whatever is going on in there. That's not a good thing, in my opinion. Okay, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, thank you for checking out my other programs on buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. You don't have to spend any money there. Don't worry about that. And get some of that homework done, and we'll see you tomorrow. But seriously, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you later. Bye-bye.